Solving percent proportions. I'm going to show you quite a few different ways of how you could do this. And you just need to use which method works best for you, but you're going to want to know all three ways. So solving percent proportions vocabulary. A proportion is an equation that shows two ratios are equivalent. So remember, that's fraction equals fraction. Maybe I said 2/3, and I wanted to figure out maybe this is 12. Well, I would multiply by 4, and 8/12. So those are equivalent ratios, and that's something that you would end up using for a problem like this, or problems like these. In a percent proportion, one ratio compares a part to the whole, while the other ratio is the equivalent percent written as a fraction with a denominator of 100. So today you're going to have a fraction equals the percent over 100. And then we're going to use that to solve all of our problems. So taking a look at the first question, we're going to use what's called a double number line. And forget, blue doesn't look very nice on the black. So we're going to go 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%, and then 100%. If I have another number line, I'm going to say, so 10 is right there. Okay, so 10 is 25%. Those two are lined up. And then I would need to fill in the rest of it. Well, I know this is 0, so that makes this 20, 30, and 40. So I'm looking for what is 100%, and I see that 10 is 25% of the number 40, and that would be my final answer. Going on to the next one, country music makes up 75% of Garrett's music library. If he has downloaded 90 country songs, how many songs does Landon have in his music library? Well, I'm going to keep my top number line because that will be the same numbers. And my bottom number line this time, I'm going to have 90 here. So then I would want to try and figure out, well, to get down to 0, if I divided by 3. So I could go 30, 60, 90. So I'm increasing by 30 each time. So if I'm increasing by 30, 120 is what matches up with my 100%. So I would know that 120 songs is how many he has in his music library. So in a double number line, what you're looking for is what number is going to end up lining up with 100%. So for the next one, you have to do a little bit more work because you would need to go from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And then I'm not going to, I guess I can draw that on the number line. So 60 goes right here. Well, so how am I going to go from 60 down to 0? I would do 30 for my 10, and then 0 would be 0. So I'm increasing by 30 again. So then I would go 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, 270. So 300 ends up being what's paired up with my 100%. So 60 is 20% of the number 300. All right, so that's a different way that you can find the answer to these problems. These are kind of similar to what we did when we were estimating. So then we can get into using a proportion, and there's an important formula that I want you to know. So remember, proportion is fraction equals fraction. So we're going to do part over the whole equals the percent over 100. And that formula is going to stay every single time. So if we use this formula to do the next question, 15 is 30% of what number? Well, 15 and percent are going to match up in my ratios or in my proportion. So 15 equals 30 over 100. And sometimes you might want to make the percent first because that's easy to know. And we would just want to pair up the 15 with 30 because 15 is 30% of what number? What is the whole? So you can do it a couple of different ways. You could, if these numbers work well with one another, we could go from 30 down to 15, which is divided by 2. So I would do the same thing to the top and bottom. Well, 100 divided by 2 is 50. So 15 is 30% of the number 50. And another way that we can solve this is we can do 15 over x equals 30 over 100. And we did cross multiplying to find equivalent ratios. Well, I'm going to end up doing the same thing. So I'm going to cross multiply, and I'm going to put 30x equals, then I'm going to cross multiply here. Well, 15 times 100 is 1500. Now I'm going to divide by 30 on both sides to get x all by itself. Well, then when I do that, x equals 50. And so today on your assignment, you're going to be able to use whichever method you want. So when I say method 1, I mean using where we're either multiplying or dividing to make the equivalent ratio, or in method number 2 is where you're going to cross multiply and divide. So for this one, 75 over question mark equals 15 over 100. Well, so I need to know, what am I going to do to go from 15 to 75? Well, that's times 5. So 100 times 5 is 500. Now, if I do the same problem, 75 over x equals 15 over 100. 15x equals 7,500 divided by 15. I end up with x equals 500. And so then that ends up being my final answer. You are going to have an opportunity to use a calculator today, so make sure you take advantage of using a calculator. 9 is 36% of what number? So we're going to have 9 over question mark equals equals 36 over 100. Well, I went 36 down to 9 is divided by 4. So 100 divided by 4 is 25. So then your method number 2, you'd have 9 over x equals 36 over 100. 36x, when I cross multiply, equals 900 divided by 36. X equals 25. All right. And the last one, you have 7 over question mark equals 35 over 100, while I am dividing by 5. So I know that 20 would be where my question mark is. 7 over x equals 35 over 100. 35. X equals 700. Divide by 35. X equals 20. And so that's all there is to it, is making sure you set it up in the right way and then just solving, either by figuring out if you can reduce it or multiply it to make an equivalent fraction, or if you can set it up as kind of an equation, and then so for your cross multiply and divide. So the next question, before 1982, pennies were 95% zinc and 5% copper. If 100 pennies minted in 1980 have an approximate mass of 15 grams of copper, what is the total mass of 100 pennies? So you kind of have to pick out some information that's important. So if we're looking at copper in 15 grams, well, 5% was copper. So those are my numbers that are going to match up. So I'm going to have 15 over question mark equals 5 over 100. Well, 5 up to 15 is times 3. So 100 times 3 is 300. So the mass of 300 or of 100 pennies is going to be 300 grams of copper. All right. And that's the last question that we have there. Use these examples to go back and review if at all necessary.